Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments. Alamance County is pleased to present the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting.
Oh, you're not. I'm looking for your partner in crime. Yeah. He's not coming tonight? I want his daughter an autograph. Yeah. Call the meeting to order.
I didn't think I was on
Mr. Turner, I think you have the honors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather as a community, and thankful that we live in a nation where we gather to discuss and consider the issues of the day. We pray for safety, we pray for wisdom, we pray for discernment for the county. Amen. Would you please join me in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. It's now time for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
No, you don't need.
No, I don't. That's right. Chairman, I would like to, in the consent agenda, 5 spot A spot 3, I make a motion that we take that completely off the agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, to do that, you have to remove your second.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Carter.
Yes, sir. I misspoke that.
Well, actually, I think we approved the agenda and then approved the consent agenda after that, so we're just approving the agenda right now.
Yeah,
You did prove
I
it.
was approving everything below 5.
Okay.
When other present, other businesses, but I was approving.
Right.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Just a question, what is this? Why are we taking it off?
Well, I can tell you my reasonings by wanting to
Well,
have
we're
it.
out of order.
But I actually spoke too early. So we'll come back to that,
We'll come back to what?
to his motion.
As part of the consent agenda.
Yeah, it's
Right,
part of the
right,
consent agenda that I'd like to have removed. Yes.
That was my,
Do we wanna like start all over?
Yeah.
Cause I don't even know if this is Monday. What just
It
happened?
is Monday morning.
I know everybody approved and we didn't approve,
We-
now I can't
we-
hear why.
We approved the agenda.
Okay.
Below 5, but below
Gotcha.
the consent
Gotcha.
agenda. And I made a motion to take 5 spot A spot 3 off.
Okay,
when we get to that
When we
point.
get there, we're not quite.
okay.
We'll get there. Thank you. Sorry.
Everyone remove from your memory bank any errors that we might have made.
It's Monday morning.
It's like telling the jury, don't listen to what they just said.
Okay, Mr. Vines, you're our only speaker.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Henry Vines. I live at 3450 Isley Drive, Snow Camp. Just like have some concerns. I wanted to speak with you today about revenue neutral rate and what it seems to be meaning. One thing that I want to bring out first of all is that the people that live in the county, we pay a fire tax, volunteer fire department tax. I sure hope that when y'all decide to set these tax rates, that y'all will reduce those tax rates down to revenue neutral as well. Because if you don't, and we get charged our percent on that tax rate on our new evaluation, it's going to be a huge increase for us. It's just in my case, on my own, what I figured is be over close to $400 increase over last year. You know, we're at 11 3/4 cents. Other departments are even higher. So I was sure wish that y'all would consider, make sure that those fire rates reflect revenue neutral as well. The second thing is the revenue neutral rate that's been thrown out at 43 cents. I've done some figures on my own on one piece of property that I have, and I had figured it going up at about 38.8%, and if you figured the 43 cents on that, it would be about $107 increase. So I mean, the ones that are going to 75%, I can only imagine how much theirs would go up. So I would just ask you to be sure that you take all these into account, and because even though I appreciate and hold y'all to it about reducing the revenue neutral rates, we need to be sure we get that. I'm running out of time. Okay, on the one that the bill was talking about, with taking out the $5 million in moving it from the general fund over to the capital improvement. If you remember, I stood up in front of y'all over 8 months ago and asked y'all to reduce the tax rate, that we had a whole lot of surplus money. You only reduced it by 1 cent. We're going to have that same amount of surplus because we didn't reduce it down. And it was really more than $5 million, because we went at the 20%. We was added some to make it to the 20%, and then got $5 million left over after that. And incentives too. I've talked to Mr. Lashley. We're going to lose money on this incentive with this reevaluation because of the tax rate reducing. I know it's going to run out of time, but I'd appreciate y'all's consideration on this. And my phone line's always open.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vine.
Thank you, Henry.
Now, Mr. Lashley,
Now we get to do this. My apologies.
we're looking at the consent agenda.
I'm looking at the consent agenda. 5, spot A, spot 3. I make a motion to just remove that completely.
And I'll second it.
Discussion. Okay. What is this?
Okay, this is the
For
money that's.
everybody that's looking.
This is the money that's, this is by the discretion of the governing board, that we can, we were gonna move $5.038 million from the, into the capital reserve from our unassigned fund balance. And, right now, I would like to just hold off on that, just because we are, coming up into a budget process in which we don't really know a lot of particulars. And I don't want to tie up this money and put it in an account that we can't reach when we may need it coming into this budget process, because we're gonna revow. We're gonna do a lot of things that we don't know, what monies that we're gonna have. So I would like to just back off a little bit. It's not time sensitive, and, back off a little bit until we actually know what we're gonna be facing in this budget process. I didn't wanna tie up any fund, I didn't wanna take any funds and put it in an account in which we couldn't get to it if we needed it to, merge our budget, because we
So-
really don't know.
So why would we want to move over $5 million? That's what I'm asking.
Well-
What is the idea behind this, if this ever
The
comes to fruition?
policy is that we, anything over 20%, and this, Ms. Evans, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 22.73 that we're
Okay.
above. So the 2.73% is going, and that's the $5 million.
That's correct.
That's above our 20% threshold.
Okay.
Basically, what we wanna do is, we can move that money over there at a later time if we wish. But as of right now, I'm just looking at the budget process, and I think that there's some money that we may need to use.
Okay.
And, if we get through the budget process, let's say it's April or May, and that didn't happen, I'm not saying that we can't spend this money on it, I'm just saying, let's hold off until we get a better idea of what our budget's gonna look like, because this next budget is gonna be a monster. We have to revow, there's a lot of things we have to do. I just didn't want to take that money away and stick it in an account and us not be able to get a hold of it. At a later time, if we so choose, if this governing body decides that that's what they wanna do, I'm okay with it. I would just like to wait until we get a little better idea of what our budget's gonna look like in May and June.
Okay, it's just a whole lot of money, and
Yeah.
it's such a really uncertain time for our citizens.
Right.
I think it's always good to ask questions to understand why
Well,
and
so I
what
just
our
want,
rules are, so to speak.
to alleviate
and
your
still.
concerns, there's, Ms. Evans, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had this conversation, like $10.2 million is currently sitting in that account currently. So we already have $10.2 million in there, so it's not like it's going away. And we could, I just didn't wanna throw that $5 million in there, and then when we get into our budget process, we need it and we can't get our hands on it.
One more question. This account that's just got this amazing amount of money in it, sure wish I had one. What is this account usually for? What are some of the things that would be under this account as far as you would spend money out of this account for?
Absolutely. So once funds, and Commissioner Lashley is correct, once funds are moved over into a capital reserve fund, those funds become dedicated for capital projects
For the county?
for the county.
Not the
So,
schools?
Not the
Okay.
schools. This is the county's portion. We have our own fund. There's the county fund, the schools, and then ACC. We are talking about what's in there for the county. Those funds would then be used, they could be used for capital projects, whether that be, additional HVAC projects. We've had in the past where there had been an emergency request. We've moved money from those funds to a county operating fund so that we could buy a new HVAC system. They can be used for future projects. We could use a portion of those for the upcoming, courts building, things of that nature.
Okay, and the, like, Board of Elections, the bank we bought and
Mhm.
spending more money on to remodel than we are paying for it. That's that kind of.
That's that kind of project.
Okay, I'm good, just asking. I'm just one of those nosy people that I'm gonna always ask.
That's a good thing.
Well, there's another opportunity there too, and if we allow the fund balance to get higher, we've got a 20% target on the fund balance right now, to retain that much in the fund balance. If we were to let it get higher, maybe perhaps at 25%, which would be a 3-month reserve, we could in fact see our bond rating increase, which would help us when we need to borrow. So,
Mr. Carter,
A lot
did
of
you
it-
second his motion?
I did.
All right. Just clearing up the
Yes.
backlog there. Any other discussion? Only discussion I have is I totally agree
Excellent.
With what?
with this motion.
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
Jeez.
All in favor of the motion to remove item 5A3, which is a budget amendment for the capital reserve. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Now,
Now,
motion to
we come
approve
back
the
to-
amended consent agenda.
Second.
Got ahead of you, John.
Thank you. Which one made the motion?
I did.
All right, you made the second, is that correct? All right. Other than removing 5A3, all that are in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. That gets rid of all that, guys. Okay, for those that are looking on the agenda, we're down to item 6A. And Vandivision, is that pronounced correct?
Vandivisser?
Please. Sorry about the name pronunciation.
That's okay. I get that a lot.
State your name for the folks and your position, please.
Yes, I'm Grace Vandivisser, Executive Director for the Alamance County Visitors Bureau. And I'll move this up here. And so today, I'm here to, with a proclamation for 2023 Year of the Trail. And just to make sure, Commissioner Lashley, you would like me to go through this? Or would
Why
you
don't
like?
we do this? Why don't we, commissioners, step down with you? Because I hope someone's gonna be taking pictures. Where's Thomas when you need him?
Well, would you like me to read this, or would you like
Why
Carrie?
don't why don't you read it
Okay.
and then we'll come join you for photographs if you like.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is our Alamance County Board of Commissioners proclamation for the 2023 Year of the Trail. Whereas Alamance County's natural beauty is critical to its residents' quality of life, health, and economic well-being, and whereas the trails that span across our community are an integral part of the recreational and transportation possibilities of our area and promote an enjoyment of scenic beauty by our residents and our visitors. And whereas the parks, greenways, trails, and natural areas in our community are welcoming to all and provide a common ground for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds to access our rich and diverse natural, cultural, and historic resources. And whereas Alamance County's natural assets and resources are integral to disaster recovery and resiliency to climate change for future generations. And whereas Alamance County's nature trails include the Haw River Trail, which is part of the Greater Mountains to Sea Trail, offering approximately 40 miles of trails within Alamance County. In addition, numerous trails are located throughout our city and county parks, along with the greenways available in our communities for our residents and visitors to enjoy. And whereas trails offer quality of life benefits to all as expressions of local community character and pride, as outdoor workshops for science education, as tools for economic revitalization, as free resources for healthy recreation, accessible alternative transportation, and sites for social and cultural events. And whereas programming opportunities will be provided to include learning about hiker safety, trail section spotlights, monthly hiking programs on local trails, and special events throughout the year. All of these opportunities are made possible in collaboration with the recreation departments throughout Alamance County and partnerships with the Mebane Trail Rangers and the Haw River Canoe and Kayak Company. And whereas the North Carolina General Assembly designated 2023 as the Year of the Trail in North Carolina to promote and celebrate the state's extensive network of trails that showcase our state's beauty, vibrancy, and culture. And whereas North Carolina is known as the Great Trail State. And be it further resolved, Alamance County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim 2023 as the Year of the Trail in Alamance County and commend its observance to all people adopted this day, the 6th of February, 2023.
Do we have a motion?
Motion
for
to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. May we come join you?
Absolutely, and I want to thank all of you for having me here today to be able to present this.
Before you sit down, I'd just like to tell you, I just recently became part of the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I finally got the words right. And it's amazing, because they talked about this last week, and they were showing city or town of Bermuda Run. I now know that exists. They got big bucks from federal dollars for stuff just like this. I was watching PBS. I went over at this retreat last week. I'm watching like Channel 4. That's what we know PBS as, about this North Carolina thing, and it showed this 13-mile trail that went through Spindle and Rutherfordton, and it was paved, and it was for walkers, runners, skateboarders, bicycles, everything, and it just went right parallel along the railroad tracks there at their towns, and the tourism that it brought to these small little areas is amazing, because, you know, we hear mental health all the time. Well, mental health is not sitting in a chair in front of a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whatever. It's not just that. It's getting outdoors, breathing air, because I dare say our parks saved a lot of people during COVID, because you could get out and breathe air instead of staying locked up in your house. So I think the more we can do for that, for our county, because we've got so much land, our grant writers for the Parks and Rec have been phenomenal. And we need to really look at stuff like that, because there's a lot of different things we can do to bring money to our county that are all about well-being. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we couldn't do what we do without our park staff, without our all of our recreation staff, and the many volunteers that do get out on our trails and work throughout our community.
Yeah, I would like to see some hard surfaces through some of these trails, because I know not some people trip, fall, that kind of thing, and we just need to always think about that because they just add so much to your community.
That's true.
They really do.
We are very grateful to have what we have. It's beautiful.
And I'm
Thank
gonna ask that Ms. York and Mr. Baker join us for this photo op. Mr. Baker has done so much for this county, particularly when he was, Director of Recreation and Parks and so forth, and Ms. York, you as well, please.
And we just started, you will start seeing these Year of the Trail promotional pieces for the Great Trail State, and this one says Alamance County. I will leave them up here for anyone who'd like to take them, but you will see that throughout the year.
Even has a beautiful gold stamp. My signature as chair, and Ms. Brink's signature as board clerk.
Either way to get some.
That's a pretty sticker at the bottom.
I'm not sure about the photographer. He started out here and he got down to here.
I gotta talk with Scott later and find out what he's doing.
Trying to be all artistical.
Pass those down and see if anybody else needs them.
We are now down to item number 6B, if you're keeping score. The new line sale and Richard. Mr. Hill, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
So today, we'd like to come in front of you with a request for some funding of the new cell that needs to be built at the landfill. Mr. Ben Clausen from Municipal Engineering is here today to answer any technical questions you may have. Ben's group and us have been at this for about 18 months, getting all the engineering done for the new 10 acres. The project itself is more than just a new cell. It also includes the formal elimination or closure of our C&D landfill. That's something that's required by North Carolina law. And the funding for that part of the job is actually already in place through our restricted funds. And Susan can get into any and all questions about this. But that money by law has to be put away as the landfill is utilized over years. The other parts of this job are a new borrow pit. A borrow pit is exactly what you think it is. It's a place to borrow dirt. But we have to form a new one to use that dirt or that clay to close the C&D, but also going forward with the construction of the new cell. And then there is the part of a new access road. That is absolutely not required in this project. However, it is the best time to do so. As the landfill expands over time, the road that we use for entry now will be gobbled up by expansion. So we thought this was the perfect time to go on and build a new road that would allow us to access our leachate tanks, also our new borrow site, but get ahead of the curve of where we're going to need roads a new road several years down the road, cheaper now than later. So that's the four main components of what we're asking funding on. Total price for all this is $7.384 million, of which, like I said, about $1 million is already in our restricted funds. The rest of it would come out of our unrestricted. Most recent audit is about $12.5 million in that fund. So there's more than adequate money to take care of it. Any questions about just the baseline of what we're trying to do? We did go through a formal process. This is a formal quote. We had about 13 or 14 companies that showed an interest. 7 of those actually came to a mandatory pre-bid, and 3 of those companies bid. There's a copy of that in your packet that shows the pricing from each one of them. We feel considerably lucky. 2 years ago, when we started this process, we were estimating $375,000 an acre. So 10 acres would be just less than $4 million. Then the world went crazy with COVID and increased pricing. So we were really scared that this price was going to come in very high. I was up in Buncombe County a couple months ago, and they were building a 10-acre sale, and they were spending $1 million an acre.
For
So-
trash.
Yes, ma'am.
That amazes me.
Yeah.
We
It's
spend
gotten to
that
be a
kind of money
very
on trash.
expensive process. And it's been pushed recently, the last couple of years, because of the cost of diesel fuel, the cost of labor. Anything you're constructing has really been hit hard. And these projects are very much pushed along by diesel prices. And that has not relented. So anyway, to make a long story short, Baxter Johnson was the awardee. Excellent company. They are the guys that helped us through the liner repair. Just a wonderful company. We couldn't have chosen a better group. They came in at about $400,000 an acre. We've got less than $2 million. The base bid for the closure of the landfill, capping that old C&D landfill, is about $500,000. And the cost of the new line landfill is about $4 million. So that's a total with a contingency of 5%, which we do not plan to use, but we want it there. Whenever you're digging underground, you don't quite know what may happen. So we felt it to be right to put a contingency. So total bid is just less than $7.4 million. That's a breakdown there. Bruce, if you could throw up the site. I don't know if we have a pointer in here or not, but this is your new sale. Everything you see in green is the 38 acres that we've been using since 1993. We are in the last 12 months of capacity there.
Is that where the liner repair?
The liner repair, Ben, you want to show on point, it's right there at the bottom of the green. It's right there. That's that liner repair that you saw. That's now been covered up and is about 10 or 15 feet high.
I have a pointer here if you wanna borrow one.
Excuse me?
Borrow a pointer.
If you got, you want more?
on the TV.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh,
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, when did we start with, see, I used to go sledding at Austin Quarters. It was so
1993,
pretty.
you used to
1994.
go hunting at Austin Quarters.
Well, buzzards and seagulls don't fly on the same day, I learned that. Okay, this right here, 1993, how much longer are we predicting that area will be done?
Less than a year.
Okay, and what have we got to add to it?
So we're getting ready to build a 10-acre cell, which you see in red. That's called Phase 6 1A. 10 acres, life expectancy 10 years, based on present day
Yeah.
compaction and volumes.
We don't get like construction stuff, like we met with Meridian.
Yes.
Does
See it?
that come in there? Will that change if they go in?
We've already been doing that for 4 years, 4+ years.
Will that change once, okay.
No.
Okay, so if we have all those areas there, what's the life expectancy of that landfill incomplete?
Okay, you see 1A being built, that's about 10 years. Just to the north of that is 1B. That'll be the next 6 acres we do. And then you go further to your left, there's another, I think, 12 or 13 acres there. And then part of what you cannot see going further is additional properties that we have, we own, and we will permit them. The answer to your question is about 60, 65 years.
Okay. Where's 54? Is
Highway
it to the
54
left?
would be going up,
Okay.
north. I guess it's north. I don't have a thing on the graph. Okay, it would be going east.
Okay.
Going 54 is east.
I'm just curious because we we're probably surprised that we've filled it up as much as we have with all, because I tell you, we Americans got lots of stuff and we
Well-
dump it anywhere.
Well, an index of that is, when I went down to the landfill 7 years ago, a good high-volume day was about 350 tons. We regularly do 600 to 700
A day.
a day. And that's all built into the new permits that Ben and them have helped us with, because we had to readjust our permits for more tonnage. That number is not going to go down. As Mebane grows, all this infrastructure in the southern part of the county, it's going to continue to go up. But the estimate I gave you on 10 years is assuming higher volumes going up and that our compaction does not get better. In other words, we try to paint you a worst-case scenario. It's very possible we may get 11, 12 years out of that sale.
Should we, just spitballing here,
Mhm.
should we consider increasing our tons that we charge for?
The tipping fee? Well, it's something I'll be talking to the county manager with.
We'll look at that as part
Um,
of the budget process.
Yeah, last year, we asked for a 5% increase. We went from 40 to 42. Inflation at 10%. And I told the board at that point that we wanted to try to come in low and that we would readjust that coming into our conversations about the new budget. Diesel fuel has not gone down. Labor has gone up.
You don't have electric packing big things out there yet.
Have what?
You don't have those big electric packing things that go back and forth yet?
Are you talking about compactors?
Yeah,
No, we have one compactor that's been in place for some years.
okay.
But that is really not something that's going to get into this conversation about
That's
longevity. or
ridiculous,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah. So cost continues to go up. The cost of operations, the regulatory concerns that we have is mind-boggling. I mean, the conversations we have now, we weren't even having 2 years ago. PFAS, GNX. It's going to get expensive. Now, I don't want to get into details now, but one of the conversations we're going to be having with the board as we go forward is there are some regulatory things that we've got to start considering. Not that we've done anything bad, but the EPA and the states coming back and saying, we want to take a look at certain things that we haven't done in the past. So, oops, I hope that's clear. Where we've been, where we're going to go. Now, that little cell 1B, red dotted lines. That particular property, we were hoping to incorporate in this bid. We could not because there's a small wetlands issue, about the size of this room. And we had the Corps of Engineers come down and take a look at it, and they formally listed it as a wetlands, which means we actually have to buy the right to remediate. We've already spent that money. We've already spent about $200,000 on that water, the size of this room. But DEQ would not approve the plan, the civil engineering. And because we have less than a year life in our existing sale, I couldn't wait any longer to incorporate that extra 6 acres. So we took it out, talked to the county manager, she agreed, went on and quoted our 10. That buys us 10 years. We'll go now forward on mediating that wetlands issue. So when the time comes and my successor is in front of you, they can go on and use that extra 6 acres.
When you say you spent about $200,000, because Richard, I just don't know, that's why I'm asking. $200,000 on wetlands, what are you doing
So,
for
and
$200,000?
Brian can get into this probably more than I can, but you can't simply disturb wetlands.
Right,
You have to buy the right, if you will, to mediate. And then you had to go, in our case, through DEQ, formal process of doing all the things that you had to do. And it's for good reason. You don't want to put a landfill in an area that can sink, because that could cause you liner problems in the future. It's just an expensive, time-consuming affair to go through.
so you already know that, but you have to pay to get the rights to know that?
Yeah, every developer has to do that.
Yeah.
Whenever they do a property, I mean, you've seen some of the mitigated, pools of water and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So anybody who runs into a wetland has to mitigate that through the state. It's just a natural process. And just to speak from what he talked about, when Brian was here and other folks were here, we have a really good landfill with a longevity compared to many, many other counties. It's one of our biggest assets for our county citizens. people would wish to have 67 years worth of stuff, and so they've done a really good job. The bid process went really well. We got a much lower bid than we thought, and kudos to Richard and his crew on that. So, again, we're just here to approve that aspect.
Mr. Hill, what's the estimated time to complete the construction of cell one?
180 days from award. That puts us like end of July. We're hoping with some good weather, and Baxter Johnson is very aggressive. They're ready to start as soon as we sign the contract. I'm hoping we get this done at the end of June. But that's all determined by weather.
Because this is
really.
the only option once the current cell.
We're out of space. There's nowhere to go.
Okay.
And again, when we look back when we started this 2 years ago, we had plenty of time, but DEQ has held this up for a year.
Okay.
And I just couldn't wait any longer.
All
We just, it's too close.
Any other questions?
Just one, is there, look, I can't believe I'm 63. It got here really quick. And you're saying about 60-plus years. I'm telling you, just like that, with the way trash goes and comes, and, I mean, it's just the stuff that we have, we see it everywhere. Is there any vision as far as another possible area that could even be another, because we've had Swepsonville area, and I mean, how do you go about finding stuff like this? Because I know land
if you
just goes.
Yeah, siting a landfill is an incredibly difficult thing today in
Yeah.
today's world because of cost of land and all the environmental concerns and the public input and all that goes. Back to your Meridian conversation, there's a reason they want to buy an existing. We're lucky enough to have a lot of land. I was sitting in a SWANA meeting a couple months ago up in Asheville, and the head of DEQ said, if you take a snapshot of landfills and you forward 15 years from now, if there's no new construction or expansion, there won't be a landfill east of Raleigh active. This is becoming a huge issue with the growing municipalities of Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Charlotte.
Okay, that's my next question. If we don't have any kind of zoning in our county, and there's a prospect of something, and they check all the boxes like some things do with the state of North Carolina, does that mean this county cannot say no?
Well, I think
Or the citizens.
you're getting to a legal conversation,
That's right.
but this board, the county has the option of approving and disapproving that
Okay.
type of,
Okay,
whether it be a transfer station or a new landfill or whatever.
okay. Always thinking later. Okay, thank you, Richard.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioners.
you, Mr. Hill.
Ms. Hook?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so this morning what I want to talk about is an emergency services center. We talked about this in the fall when I came to you to talk about the BD building, the building on Plantation Drive, and so I want to finish up that conversation. So basically, the Emergency Services Center is an opportunity to house several areas together. The Alamance County 911 Center, Burlington Police Department 911, Emergency Management, Fire Marshal's Office, and some of EMS administration. Okay. Cannot get it to move forward. What am I doing wrong? Okay. So what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about the 911 centers. So, you know, right now what you have is Alamance County is your main 911 center. That is where all 911 calls come into. Burlington also has a 911 center. So if you're a citizen, you call into Alamance County or you call into 911, it's answered here. And if they find out that you're a resident of Burlington or Graham or the incident is in those jurisdictions, that call gets transferred to Burlington. Burlington does dispatch for Burlington and Graham. Alamance County does dispatch for everybody else, which would include your county 911, all of your other municipalities, their police departments, EMS, fire. So Burlington does Graham and Burlington Police and Fire. So what you've got by having two separate systems is there are some communication barriers between the two. Some of that comes from the physical difference, and then also there are two different radio systems being used by the two centers.
Would you tell us what I think we know, but tell the audience what those two systems are and the variances?
So for Alamance County 911, we are using a Viper radio system, which is the state-supported radio system. City of Burlington uses Tron, which is part of Guilford County, and since Graham has moved over to Burlington 911, they are using it as well. So the ability to have the two areas co-located would allow some response in escalating incidents and also multi-jurisdictional incidents. What happens is as an incident grows and there's a need for more and more response, there's a need for better communication between Burlington and Alamance County. Because remember, Burlington's doing fire and police for them, we're doing EMS. And once they need EMS, they have to contact Alamance County. But also once they need other jurisdictions to come in and do mutual aid, that goes back to Alamance County too. So when an incident grows, there becomes a lot of conversations and communications back and forth. The ability to be in shared space helps with that, because if you're in a shared space, you're sensing in the room that things are building and you're able to hear what's going on around you.
Now, to resolve that issue, we would both need to be, that is, Burlington Graham versus the rest of Alamance County would be on one single system, which would mean you could call 911 and not have to have the current transfer. Is that correct?
So that is correct. Yes, that is correct. What we're talking about is we would have a shared software system, but this is not gonna take care of the radio system. That
So
would be what we'd
hypothetically-
like to get to.
Hypothetically, if I live in downtown Burlington, call 911, have a medical emergency, need an ambulance, I call 911, which is our current Viper system with the county, then they have to transfer that call to the con system with Burlington in order to get a response. I know that to be factually correct. If we combine the two systems into the statewide Viper system, there would be one call, no delay, and the Burlington police officers could hear the communication, whereas now they cannot on our 911 Viper. And simultaneously, Alamance County cannot hear the con system because they're an entirely different radio system. So the question I have is, with this combination, why not have one system which will save lives and eventually cut down on cost?
So that is a great question, and that is not one that the county can answer independently. So that would require Burlington making the decision that they want to go to a new radio system. What we're saying is this, if we could co-locate, gets us in the first step of at least we've increased our communications between the two centers.
In that you're in the same building.
In that we're in the same building, and it increases their ability to communicate with each other. It does not solve the radio system, which is a completely different system. So Burlington would have to make the decision that they want to move over to the Viper system.
So
Thank you.
so we think by putting everybody under one roof, that's gonna influence Burlington to totally flip on their Viper what they've already been sold on with Guilford. I remember being
I'm
on.
not saying
No,
that.
I'm saying, that's what it sounds like from here, because, being under the same roof don't make you agree. I mean, it's just the way it is, and I don't know, me and Bill can be on the phone with two different people, and just because we're on the phone with two people don't mean we know what we're saying because we're sitting beside each other. I'm just asking, and
So it's not, it does not force Burlington to make a change, it does not encourage them to make a change, but what we hope is that there are increased communications between the two centers. The other pieces that we have going on is that both their center and our center are at capacity. So as the community grows, we're not gonna be able to grow our 911 center in the space that we're in right now. They are at capacity as well. And then the other piece of it is that we have to have a backup 911 center. We have something of a backup center. Right now, our backup center is in the conference room at FJC. That's those tables that you see around the edges. So if we were to need to go and use that backup center, it is not immediately available. We have to go in and do some setup, so there is a delay in that. If we were to be able to relocate, then we have the opportunity to have a 911 center that would be immediate, backup center that would be immediately available.
I have a question.
Sure.
Did that answer your question?
no,
Connie?
obviously, is Burlington on board with being under the same roof with the county?
We have had lots of conversations with Burlington.
Do they
They
pay
are
us?
they are on board with being under the same roof. They're not on board with combining systems.
Well, that goes against their whole point of having them under the same roof.
Do they,
I don't get this.
do they help in, paying for this, paying for this center?
So they are not helping in paying for the center. No, they're paying for their own expenses in their own location right now. We're paying for our own expenses in our
That doesn't
our
seem
current
very
location.
efficient.
Well, the
Doesn't
money
seem
comes-
very
money
efficient
is
at all,
from
and I
the
don't
state,
understand why
Bill.
Burlington wants to swim against the tide. I don't understand that, but I think I know why. And I think I know who to go talk to about this too.
Well, Bill, the money is coming in from the state to pay
Yeah.
for this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not Burlington money and county money, it's
15 million.
$15 million
But that's
from the
not,
state.
but that's not all of the,
Well, under one
We'll
plan
get to
it
that.
might be. But I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
We have MOUs with the surrounding counties to provide backup service. Are they all on Viper, except for Burlington and
So
part of Guilford?
everybody is on Viper except for Graham and Burlington.
Any reason why Graham decided to do this? Sheriff, you have any idea?
I have no idea.
I know who to go talk to about that too.
I have talked to several of the Graham City Councilmen, and they are concerned about their safety of the citizens, their officers, because once they leave that con system with Burlington, their radios are pretty much useless at that point. They cannot communicate with Alamance County, the other municipalities. It's just a dangerous situation. So, commissioners, I would encourage us, well, let me back up before I even make that
A
statement.
little
I'm
bit
getting ready
further,
to
a
make.
little bit further back.
Okay. If we use the $15 million grant and purchase the property,
Mhm.
that does not mandate us to do anything with Burlington, is that correct?
So, the original grant, it did talk about a co-located 911 center, which would include bringing Burlington into it. It does not mean anything about the radio systems at all.
Correct. But Burlington is telling me personally, they just don't wanna spend any money. They want us to move them into our new center, but they don't want it to cost anything to Burlington, and they're not willing to even discuss it at this point.
So if we can get
Makes no
into,
sense.
if we can get into the numbers, we can talk about ways that we could do all of it for the 15 million. But yes, I agree with you, and that's what we've heard as well. Because they feel like the $15 million grant, part of the main reason was to co-locate 911, and they feel like that should be where the money should go to first, is to
Then why
cover that
not take
co-location.
this step to make it safe for law enforcement, our citizens, and save lives?
And I believe that they have put aside $10 million of ARP funds for economic development. I would suggest to the city of Burlington officials that they take some of that $10 million and maybe come be partners with the county. They will be a stronger unit and there would be funds that can be used for the safety and security of their citizens.
Do we not think that Burlington and Graham citizens are not safe?
They are
I mean,
not safe.
it sounds like they're doing their thing and we're doing our thing. And as long as the thing is getting done, that's all that matters, because I'm hearing you say that you're calling this person and you may have to transfer to that. That's a second or two. It ain't like, hold on, you're running down the hall for 10 minutes to get somebody. I think we just gotta be careful here. It's just another millions of dollars that we're wanting to spend after what just happened with our citizens. We just need to be real careful not to feel like, because we've gotten this grant or whatever you want to call it, that we have to be pushed into doing this as well. This was probably way before. I remember when Amy was the chairman talking about Burlington switching over to Viper, and then Graham coming on, and there wasn't any discussion, if I'm not mistaken. And the key is open discussion. It's a shame Burlington's not here to talk with us about this at the same time. And you know, that's their money to spend what they want to on it. I'm just saying, and ours is the same way. But the county can't carry everybody.
It seems Burlington made a short-sighted, misguided decision here.
Well, they may be saying the same thing about us.
Well, that's okay.
I mean, you know, I mean,
But
both
I can
sides.
prove I can prove the things that I want. They can't.
Okay.
Well, I was just gonna suggest that perhaps we try to arrange a joint session.
Absolutely. With the city
Have a
manager.
conversation
Would the city
about this
manager be
issue.
in this? Both the city manager of Graham and Burlington, I surely would like to talk to them.
Because it's kind of not real fair us sitting here talking about them, like, you know, they're doing all this wrong, and we're sitting here wanting this. I mean, you can't really get anything done unless you're all in the room at the same time, because we may be missing what it is that they have, you know, reservations about. And we don't need to assume anything.
Well,
What's
let me
the
correct
point?
one
Everybody's
thing.
safe. That's all that matters.
First off, this is not seconds. I know it myself and a number of neighbors that have, you call 911, you live in the city of Burlington, and you do, and I do.
I do.
And you have to explain who you are, the address, what is the emergency. Oh, by the way, we've got to convert you to the con system with the city of Burlington. You have to repeat everything. In a stroke situation,
Do it
that can
once.
be life or death, and it is. And it's not seconds, it's minutes.
Well, I'm
at
sure
best.
every call is totally different based on what that call
Clearly,
is.
clearly.
But I don't want us to think that every call is like every call, because every human being is totally different with whatever symptom they're calling in for their emergency. I just think we all need to be at the same table talking about something this kind of money, because we need to bounce off each other for this and come to some kind of agreement on what would be best for the citizens.
And
every
I'm in
citizen.
total agreement that stroke victims are treated very, very differently than a broken leg or arm or something.
They should be.
I have no argument with that whatsoever. I just think it's not pertinent to this argument.
So I will, and to your point, we have been having those conversations back and forth with Burlington, and Burlington is very interested in the co-located center as long as that there are funds to cover the entire cost of it.
Gotcha.
I think they're looking at it the same way we are. We've got $15 million to get it done. They want it to get done under the $15 million. So they don't have to increase their budget for any additional relocation expense. I think we want the same thing. So I think we're on the same sheet of music, so to speak. We just got a problem
Focus
with the
in.
piece about actually communicating between the two systems.
Which is extremely important.
It is critically
It's
important.
probably the number one priority. I know the
And
sheriff
I
would
got a
like-
feeling all of us have had conversations with various members of the city council. I know I have, and I know they're interested in discussing it. I just think it would be a good idea for us to have a joint meeting and actually get all this out on the table and figure out where we can go.
Well, I just know that our county deputies, that they always seem like the people wanna lean on them. You know, if we were all part of the same group and you guys could communicate, that actually should make the deputies in the county feel good that they have a backup. And it should make Burlington and Graham feel great that they have a backup just in case things go awry. Just
Well,
don't
they do now,
understand
but
that.
it's just not as convenient.
Yeah, just don't understand that.
Convenience can be life or death. Mr. Sheriff Johnson, would you like to address that issue?
I'll just say this, every second counts when it comes to life or death. And, you know, we've had several chases that have gone from the county into the city, and the city to us, and it's hard, it's tough communicating, and every second makes a big difference.
Can I just clarify the safety issue for a second? If there is a need for medical care, the county is the one who is dispatching for EMS. So if you're in Burlington and you call 911, we will send an ambulance to you without that transfer. I just want to be clear about that. I don't want our residents feeling like they're not being served.
Yeah,
The
that's
ambulance
not-
is the ambulance, it's not Burlington ambulance, Snow Camp ambulance,
Right.
Graham, it's the ambulance.
Now,
So
that
the
is
county-
not what happened for an individual in my household. In fact, I called 911 with a medical emergency ongoing. I went through all the, who I am, the address, the emergency, we've got to, and they then transferred me to the Burlington system before an ambulance or a fire engine or anything else was dispersed. So I know that to be factually correct with an individual in my household. Now, can we purchase the property and then have the discussion with Burlington and resolve some of these issues?
So I think that is my recommendation, because even without all of these being resolved, we still have the issue of we're at capacity at our locations, and we do not have a backup center that is functioning in the way it should. We have a backup center, but it is not something that is immediately available if we needed to utilize it.
So,
And this would give us that opportunity.
so our existing center then would be back up to the new center if something were to happen, right?
Yes. Mhm. Yep.
That would make sense.
So I'm gonna move into the money part of it. So the Emergency Services Center, you've already talked about this. The state did give us a $15 million award, for this center. The hopes were to be able to put emergency management storage, emergency operations, fire marshal's office, some EMS administration, and again, the Alamance County 911 and Burlington 911. We engaged with Mission Critical Partners to start planning for this, and when we did, we looked at new construction, and that price tag was around $56 million. 911 centers are not cheap centers to build, so they cannot be compared to regular commercial building or residential building. Very expensive.
Would you explain why? I think we know.
It
but-
has to do with all of the communications infrastructure that you have to plan for.
Technology.
The technology
And the
behind it.
bulletproofness of part of the.
The hardening of the structure.
Exactly.
Mhm. So since building a building was out of the question, we went and looked for existing buildings. We were able to find this building at 780 Plantation Drive. This building is close to 70,000 square feet. About 28,000 of that is warehouse space, and it has been leased to the State Emergency Management Center. There is also 41, almost 42,000 square feet of office space. About 8,000 of that has been leased. So we would be looking at purchasing the entire building, maintaining the lease, and then utilizing the rest of the building.
So we wouldn't have the whole building.
We are not gonna have the whole building, so this would not include storage for emergency management equipment,
Now,
but it
we'll
would
own
include.
the entire building.
We will own the whole building, but we will maintain that lease of all the warehouse space and the 8,000 square feet of office
And
space.
therefore have income from the state.
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
How long is the lease?
The lease is a 10-year lease. It was just signed in the fall, and then there's 2 options of 5-year extensions on the end of it. So it could be up to 20 years.
It's their option.
It's, whose
Yeah,
option is it?
It's their option.
I have been told too that there's land available if we wanted to look at some point in the future of acquiring land that is either in the same proximity or adjoins it, where we could add on space to, I know we've been looking at a regional, area to store regional emergency management equipment, and that would give us a place to look at that.
Just out of curiosity, is the area that we would be able to use, is it, are we gonna grow into it, or are we already grown out of it?
No, it leaves us room for expansion. Yes. Okay. So we engaged with Mission Critical Partners and Schrader Group and, to complete programming. Basically, they looked at the building, we did exercises on planning for how we could fit in the building, would we fit into the building, and the findings were the building's sufficient for all of our program areas, and it does allow for future growth. There are some cost savings opportunities because there's existing furniture and there's some amenities that are already in there that we would utilize and not have to build. It's centrally located in the county and it gives us easy access to 4085. The building is in good condition and it's typical for commercial office construction. And what that means is that the building is rated at category 2 instead of 4, which would be what a critical infrastructure building would be. So it will require some hardening to the structure as we go through the renovation process. In working with Mission Critical Partners and Schrader Group, what we are learning is this is what all 911 centers that don't build from the ground up are going through this same process. So it's not a reason not to go down this road, it's just a reason to know that there's a few extra things that we'll have to do to this building. And I also have Harry Petoni from Schrader Group is on the call by Zoom if we have questions for him. So getting into the cost of this is a little bit hard to see, but you've got this in front of you. So the cost for full renovation, this is if we were to put everybody in here that we have talked about. So you've got, the building is listed at $7.299 million, so right at $7.3 million. The renovation for everything comes in around $18 million. So that's a total cost of $25 million. If you look over to the side, our funding sources, we have our $15 million grant. We feel that the E911 board will provide reimbursement for about $2.2 million in expenses. And then that 10-year lease amount that we currently have is around $4.2 million. So that gives us funding sources of about $21 million. So that leaves us short, just under $4 million. If you were to look at the 20-year on the lease, that provides us an additional $5.6 million. So it does cover the entire cost of it, but it takes 20 years to get there. So what we did was went back to them and said, okay, what if we were to just do a partial renovation and we were to only renovate right now for 911, make that the bulk of our renovation so that we could have that co-located center. In doing that, the price of the building stays the same, but the renovation costs go to 9.89, almost 9.9 million, so that puts you at 17 million. You've still got your grant at 15 million, and we feel that the 911 board will reimburse the 2.2. So that covers the cost of the building if we were to do this partial renovation. In addition, you still have that 4.2 million that will come in from the state lease. That money could be put into a reserve for future renovations on that building. So that's at 10 years, and if you were to look at the 20-year, you've still got the additional 5.6 million. So basically, you would come in making a profit on it. So that's where we are. So if we were to do this renovation and we co-located 911 and Burlington and Alamance, we would still go through this process of engineering or the process of design. We feel like we could get more in there for this cost than what we're showing right now. When they did the initial projections for cost, they also had a huge contingency in there of about $2 million. The other thing is that when we talked about putting the 2 911 centers in, we were talking about building them completely out for future. So we've projected extra seats, they've projected extra seats, but if we were to go in and right-size that and put it together like it is for enough space for them for right now, then we could cut that cost by about another $1.5 million. So we would have the space, we just would not be buying all the furnishings, we would not put all the initial technology in, but we would have it there for future growth. So you'd be investing in the future, but you'd be investing as you grow instead of us putting all of our money in, going, in 10 years, we're gonna fill this up, or 20 years, we're gonna fill this up. We'll just right-size it. So there's opportunities to cut these costs some so that we can get the rest of our partners in there. And that's what we'll do as we go through this planning process.
And if you do that, eventually, we're gonna have to have one system, or at least hopefully. I mean, it makes no sense to have two separate systems. If we go statewide, which is the Viper system, then you're gonna have to buy a lot of new equipment anyway. Is that correct?
So for City of Burlington, yes.
Well, and update hours, it's certainly not gonna stay current.
So our radio systems are in place, and we have a CAD system, which is the software that runs everything down there. That would not change. So that in Burlington, we're already working with Burlington on a project to keep that the same. So you're really talking about the changes that Burlington would need to make to get on the Viper system.
Right.
About, what was it, about two and a half, maybe 3 years ago, we approved putting in a new Viper tower on the north side of the county. And is that done yet? Weren't we dealing with some issue with some birds? Great.
Birds didn't sign the contract.
Don't we need another tower in the southern part of the county? You know, are we having, Sheriff, are we having problems with communication in the southern part of the county?
Wait a minute, Dexter, do you have something to add?
Right, you're speaking about the Osprey?
Yes.
That's for our VHF backup. That has nothing to do with Viper.
Okay.
So Viper's a totally different system. The VHF is the system that the county owns, the county maintains, and it is a backup that is ready in case Viper goes down.
Okay.
Plus we dispatch, we page out our EMS and fire personnel on it as well. So.
I've got all of our emergency management, or emergency here, and they are all just dying
All of
to
our
say
heroes.
stuff.
Right.
Just want you guys to know, if you have questions, they're all back there. Yancey's about to jump out of his seat. I'm not sure what he has to add, but he's got
There's
something.
one, I'd like to try to clarify a little bit on the radio systems. Actually having two radio systems coming into that one center is a plus, because there is times when radio systems go down. The Tron has done it with Graham a time or two. We've had some issues a time or two where we would have certain towers down on the Viper system, but having two radio systems coming into one center is actually a plus. Their dispatches will be run the same, which that would clear up some of the issues that you're having with the call to one center and be transferred to another. And it would come into one center there, so with the way their technology runs from their dispatch, they could actually, it would take some work with them getting their procedures done and all, but you would make one call to one center, and then it would go to whoever was sending out that call, roll over to the dispatch for the fire, whichever, just like you would in a normal center. So,
I've been told that Viper can't, if you're on Viper, you can't communicate with
you
Tron.
can't-
If you're on Tron, you can't.
You can't directly, but by having those two systems, if one system goes down, then you can switch over. Because in my radio, I can switch to the Burlington with the Tron system.
Can any of our other agencies do that?
All of us have that capability. We just can't talk on both of them. They don't communicate together at the same time. But by having two systems, it actually gives you a backup that you could switch over.
You just gotta know you need to move.
Yeah, you just have to move.
The agency has to build out a template that has the Tron radio systems in it, and if they do, then they can just switch over and monitor if they're on a mutual aid call. They have that ability, that interoperability.
But it does take a little work on whoever's using the radio to know which button he needs to turn to get on the right channel sometimes. But that would actually be a plus by having the two radio systems in there. I think by having everyone in the same room, your dispatch issues will clear up a lot, because Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're using the same software for dispatch, correct? So they could talk on the consoles in the dispatching section.
Okay.
The way he lays it out makes sense. looking at it the way I
Right.
was, Yancy, it was like, you made a good point, having two radio systems, one goes down, at least you have access to another.
Yeah, and to
That
try,
makes sense.
yeah, and to change out one of the radio systems, you're probably looking, the last figures I heard for a county that was looking at doing that was somewhere about $24 to $28 million.
Then explain to me why Graham police officers are talking to me about we can't talk to Alamance County.
It's probably just in their template that they're not switching over. Normal conversations, they will talk to Burlington people, the sheriff's department talks to sheriff's department. But if they run a call together, most time they will go to some type of a channel where they can communicate.
It's just not what I'm hearing from officers and,
I think there's some
Maybe they
training
should be here
opportunities.
to tell us in person themselves. That always works better.
Steve might be able to clear that up a
Okay.
little bit too. I mean,
Yeah, maybe a programming issue with the radios themselves. We've seen that in the past when we've had some events.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. What?
Navigate, the way the radios are programmed, I'm not sure which vendor they use, if they use somebody in-house, but we've been to some events where, the radios weren't getting out, but it was based on how they were set up.
I had a Graham officer tell me that if he was in a pursuit situation that went outside the county, he'd lose communication. Maybe he doesn't know that he won't, but right now he thinks he will, so.
That's correct. As soon as they get out of the reach of the Tron Tower, I think it's the 157, if they were chasing, they lose all radio, communications back to the Tron radio
How far
system.
did the county go on that chase one time?
We've
On
chased
Viper.
almost probably halfway from here to the beach, because Viper statewide, it repeatedly hits
Right.
the tower.
it would require that officer to switch channels on his radio. He would have that capability, but he would probably have to switch channels on his radio. And I know Graham Fire, they actually have a channel in their same band on the radio where all they have to do is switch down two channels on the radio and it goes over to one of our channels. They use
Well,
our EM channel.
Kinda sounds like it might be a good idea for county management, county emergency management, to have a joint meeting with a variety of with all the agencies to make sure everybody knows what they can do.
Yeah, we've had those in the past. It's just one of those, it's a, issue that you have to keep working on constantly to make sure you've got it, laid out. And I think by having everyone working out of one center, it will help a lot. We'll be able to come together if we're having an issue and figure out how to get around it.
Mr. Chairman, a
Yes.
couple questions. First of all, I certainly don't think any of these issues are going to improve if we don't create this emergency services center. So I think we need to start moving forward on this. I do have a couple of questions. Could
Sure.
you go to page 3 of the presentation, please? The emergency services center list of what's included.
Yes.
So what of those, as we've been talking a lot about 911, but there's more to this building than 911. If we go to the partial renovation option, what of those bullet points do we lose?
So, on this bullet point, you've got emergency management storage. We are not gonna have that in this building regardless because the state has leased that out. The piece that we're gonna lose is an enhanced emergency operations center. So we've got a small emergency operations center over, in the basement of Family Justice Center
On Martin.
on Martin Street. If we do the partial, I believe they can pull all of that stuff over. You're not gonna have an enhanced center. You're not gonna have new equipment. You're just gonna be bringing your stuff over. So I think all of the offices can still come over. You can have some form of emergency operations center. You're just not gonna have a huge center where everybody can come. All of the municipalities, all the partners can come in the event of an emergency. We've already got that right now. We've got a small space. They come and we're on top of each other. Ideally, what you'd want is a nicer operations center where all of your partners can come in the event of in an event, and they've all got room to spread out. They're in the same room, they're still talking, but they've got their own equipment, their own stations. They kinda have that now, but then half of them have to sit at a big table in the middle of it. So I think we can replicate that, and then if we could hold some of that lease money, we could renovate that as that fund grows.
The physical space for the Emergency Operations Center would be in this building.
Yes.
It's just what's included in it.
Correct.
That you could later upgrade to the fuller vision that you're
Yes.
describing.
Mhm.
All right.
And that's where we would like to get to.
Is there anything else that you'd lose?
No, everything else is gonna be the same. You're gonna have your emergency management offices would be over there, a scaled down EOC, your fire marshal's office would be there, EMS administration, that's just a few offices, and then, your 911 centers, Burlington and Alamance.
What is the, what's the confidence level of the funding sources from the E911 board? Yeah.
Very, very confident in that. Stephen, do you wanna talk to that?
Yeah, at the end of the year, there's several things technology-wise that go into the 911 fund that are, funds that, are allowable expenditures. Anything where, type of technology or call-taking positions are eligible expenses. So, say we move in to this building, the state allows us 10 seats. So everything for the 10 seats, the CAD consoles.
Can everybody hear what he's saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
The CAD consoles, radio, everything is reimbursable by the state for those 10 seats. Now, anything additional would be out of the county's pocket. I think Burlington's seat, their approved count is 4 or 5, so the state would allow and pay for everything for those seats, but anything in addition to would come out of Burlington's, I guess, general fund. But the state reimburses at the end of every fiscal year, so we pay and they just reimburse us for the eligible expenses.
Now, is that reimbursed? When in the project is that reimbursed?
It
At
would
the
be
end, or
At the end of the year, after the expenses are incurred.
Okay. And what's the vision for how long this renovation is going to take?
So I think it will take, probably 12 months for the actual design and 12 months for the remodeling, renovation. So you're talking maybe January, February of 25.
Okay. Which gives us time to have further discussions with Burlington
Exactly.
and EMS about
Mhm.
creating, we certainly need to create a system that's as seamless as possible. And so that gives us time to continue to do that. So all you're asking for is a approval of the
So one-
purchase of the building for $7.2 million?
$7.299.
$7.2999 million, I make
Yep.
that motion.
And I would also ask that we authorize the county manager to execute documents and complete this process.
Yes, I'll amend the motion to include that.
And the motion should also identify the funding source, which will be the state grant that the county received.
So amended.
Thank you.
But that's not all of the money, Chris.
Right, that would be the purchase of about 7.29 million.
And we have the ability to pay for this over time.
So we have,
Like when we have different things that come up, I'm just saying what you said, 1 year for, what was the word?
so right, for.
Design.
For design.
Design?
So right now, what we're asking is for the purchase of the building, which would be the 7.299. Then after we get into design, we'll come back and ask for the approval of the cost of the design. And then when we get ready to build, we'll come back. So that the remainder, the 7.7, will be sitting in a fund till we're ready to come back and ask for
Okay.
the rest of it.
That's what I'm saying, we're gonna have some time before
Exactly,
the
yes. Mhm.
gauntlet comes
Yep.
down and everything has to be paid.
And right now, that money's sitting in a fund and it's gaining interest, and we have about, 283,000 we've earned in interest that
Excellent.
would go towards
Good
this
stuff.
project.
I like it already.
Just one.
Just delay it 10 years, great.
Yeah.
Let Susan work her magic.
Yeah.
She'll have it paid for it.
We sure do have a lot of funds that have a lot of money in these funds. It's interesting. I just wanna make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You want to buy this building and you're already going to scale it down. Is that what I
No,
heard?
That's not, it is kind of what you heard. The building will allow us growth for 20 years. What I'm saying is, what I wanna scale down is what we initially put into the building. So instead of building out for 15 consoles for Alamance County, we would build out for 10, which is what we currently use. There will be space to add the other 5 in the future.
But that's not a decision we need to make right now.
We don't, right?
Right, but I understand that, and I appreciate that, but I'm hearing how dire straits this is. Issues or whatever that looks like. And, I'm just curious as to, we're already talking, we wanna get it, but we're not gonna have exactly what we need, but we're gonna get in that in 20 years. If we need it right now, not 20 years if it's life and death. That's
So
the way I look at it.
You don't need all of those stations right now.
Mhm.
You're gonna need them as your population grows. So what I'm saying is, there's an opportunity to cut costs by just putting in there the number of stations you need right now. Those are the number of stations that would be reimbursable by the E911 board. If we go ahead and add those extra stations, we can do it out of this money, but it won't be reimbursable. So that's what I'm saying is, we build for inside what we need right now, but these are conversations we can have as we go through the design process as well.
And let me touch on the design process. Are those design processes gonna be for 15 places,
We're
not
gonna
just
have
10?
them look at both.
Cause see, I don't want to do this and then like in a year or two, we're having to tear down a wall and do whatever and remodel
No.
and spend all this extra money.
There would not be remodeling included in this. What we would have them do is they would create the space large enough for that number of consoles. We just wouldn't use all the space initially. It wouldn't be tearing down the walls as we build on. But again, we'll go
Yeah.
through that in the design, through that exercise in the design process.
I'd like to second Mr. Turner's motion, that we purchase the 780 Plantation Drive at a cost of $7,299,000, from the funding from the State Capital Infrastructure Project Fund, and authorize the county manager to execute all documents related to the purchase. Mr. Turner, did I accurately?
That is accurate, yes, Mr. Chairman.
I second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. You got your motion.
All right, thank you.
You can continue on if you like, but. Ms. Hook, did you have other comments you wanted to make?
I said thank you.
It's okay, I'm used to it.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Ms. Thompson?
No,
complete
it's
your
already
comment.
voted, it doesn't matter, I'm just gonna say this, we're spending a whole lot of money, and the majority of people sitting in this room are here because of their tax eval, and we need to really think about that. That's reality, that's all I'm saying, that's it.
Okay, I've got the agenda that was printed out for me last week. I'm not sure. I think we moved things around to have the county manager's report next. Is that correct? I think we're moving item 7 down to below current number 9.
That's fine with me.
That's for the attorney.
Then let's have the county manager's report.
Sure, just a couple of items, commissioners. The negotiations with Meridian are going well. They are expecting a traffic impact study from DOT within the next couple of weeks, and so we wanted to bring that item back for you once the study had been completed, so that you could have all of the information in making a decision. So kind of pushing pause at the moment, waiting till we get that study, and then you'll have it on your agenda for further discussion. We also are doing another update on the debt affordability model that you saw at your retreat. So we'll like to bring back an update to that at your next meeting, and then we'll still have a discussion about the courthouse project and some decisions that would need to be made in light of the model. So those are still forthcoming.
And thank you. County commissioners' comments. Thank you. County attorney's comments.
Good morning, Board. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, I would ask the Board move into closed session to consult with an attorney employed or retained by a public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body. The attorney will advise the board on ongoing legal matters, including Allison et al. V. Allen et al. And NAACP et al. V. Alamance County et al. I don't anticipate any action after closed session.
Motion to approve.
Second.
In discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. We're in closed session. We didn't have a. Exactly the right amount.
Now they're sending me 2 notices to renew, or donate, I guess, or something.
The city office don't stand there all the time.
We have concluded the closed session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. And
Aye.
nay. Aye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Commissioner meetings typically occur on the first and third Monday of each month in the Commissioners' Chambers at the County Office Building at 124 West Elm Street in Graham. The first Monday meeting begins at 9:30 a.m. and the third Monday meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. Changes to the meeting schedule will be posted on the county website at www.alamance-nc.com. The video of this meeting will be broadcast on LocalGov TV. Please go to www.localgovtvnc.com for more information about their schedule and to see more videos produced by your local governments. You can also access this meeting through our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Alamance County NC or by clicking the YouTube link on the county website. Technical questions regarding this meeting's broadcast or production may be sent to our county webmaster at webmaster@alamance-nc.com. This address is for technical questions only. Comments and questions about the content of this meeting may be made to the commissioners themselves. You can find their contact information at the Alamance County website at www.alamance-nc.com. There you can click on the link that says County Commissioners to learn more about the commissioners, read minutes and agendas of commissioner meetings, and find other information about the county commissioners. You can also send mail correspondence to County Commissioners, 124 West Elm Street, Graham, North Carolina 27253. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments.